and it is a salon, a hair salon.
Oh,
My wife manages, and we, um, combine services. We cross-refer, and the salon feeds the med spa feeds the surgeries, and it goes around, and sometimes the other way around as well.
hello, and welcome to Beauty and the Biz, where we talk about the business and marketing side of plastic surgery. I'm your host, Catherine Maley, author of Your Aesthetic Practice, What Your Patients Are Saying, as well as consultant to plastic surgeons to get them more patients and more profits. And I'm super excited about today because we have a live plastic surgeon from Cape Town, Africa, or South Africa, I guess. All right, so it's Dr. Avron Lipschitz, a board-certified plastic and reconstructive surgeon in private practice in Stuart, Florida, with a satellite med spa in West Palm Beach, Florida. Now, he's a native of South Africa, where he graduated medical school from the University of Cape Town, and then he did a plastic surgery research fellowship at the University of Texas Southwestern in Dallas, where he completed his general surgery training, as well as a fellowship in plastic and reconstructive surgery at Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore, Maryland, while also doing additional aesthetic training at Manhattan Eye and Ear Hospital in New York. So he's had a bucket load of training. So Dr. Lipschitz, thank you for coming on to Beauty and the Biz. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Thanks for having me, Catherine. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. I have to understand, how did you get from South Africa to Florida?
As you said, I graduated from the University of Cape Town. I did a couple of years in South Africa, and it was my dream to live in America and become a plastic surgeon in America. And I just worked step by step to get here. I took my boards, took USMLEs. I was recruited to a research fellowship in Dallas under Rod Rourke, and it opened a lot of doors for me. I'm very, very grateful. And then I did general surgery, followed by plastic surgery in Baltimore at Johns Hopkins. And I had amazing mentors throughout. So again, I'm very grateful to be here. Once I graduated, I moved to Florida because, just like everybody, they want to be in the sunshine. My wife especially wanted to be here, and we moved down to Florida after training, and we opened up a private practice, and been here for about 12 years now.
Oh, very good. Did you go, I understand you stayed with reconstructive and cosmetic. Like, what kind of percentage?
So in the beginning, this is, I came out of training in 2011, which was a really difficult time in plastic surgery. And, you know, again, Stan Klatsky is one of the, doyens of plastic surgery, was a very close friend and mentor of mine. And he really gave me some really good advice just coming out. And, he really suggested, focus on reconstructive work in the beginning, build your reputation in the community, um, and then develop the cosmetic side of your practice over time. And of course, it's tried and tested. And in those days, that was the way to do it. And I would recommend doing it that way to any neophyte plastic surgeon coming out of training, if they're able to do that, because it sustainably builds a practice. As long as you do good work, eventually patients come. And of course, the marketing side of it does come in over time, and you really have to learn about that as you go, because you're not taught it really well in training at all, most people. So I found that as my practice has progressed, I'm doing less reconstruction and more cosmetic, and I'm at about 80-20 in terms of cosmetic versus reconstructive at this point.
Oh, nice. All right. And did you automatically go into a solo practice, or did you first join someone else's practice to do some recon, get your feet wet, and then go into private?
No, I mean, I just went into solo practice, and in solo practice, I did and continue to do reconstructive and cosmetic work. So I never really worked for anybody else except my wife, I suppose.
So, but did you have a fellowship? Because I find you don't get the education that you need or the experience to run your own practice. You're barely figuring out the surgery part. Now you have to do all of the rest of this. I just think the fellowships can be so advantageous for you to learn how does somebody else do it, and then you learn what you like about what they did and what you didn't.
I agree. Actually, I didn't, but I agree with you. I think it's always good to learn from people, watching other people, as long as they're doing a good job themselves. Because I've seen, so-called experts and people that are, um, considered very, highly potentially cosmetic surgeons, but some of them don't know how to run practices. And I've seen, so you always have to. I think what I've really learned over the years is take advice from people that are that are in the industry that you can see are successful. Try and bring it into your own experience, but it's your experience is yours alone, and you have to always monitor and make sure that whatever you're trying from somewhere else is working for you.
When you started, was it just you and your wife, or how did you grow your staff?
Yeah, so it reminds me of a conversation I had with Dr. Klatsky, because what I would do, so I think maybe the substitute for doing a fellowship was once a week I would call Stan Klatsky, and it's amazing. I mean, the guy was like an absolute mine of information, and he really defined cosmetic practice in the 1990s. And but so I would call him once a week, and I would have kind of a mentor meeting with him. Sometimes we would talk about clinical things, and sometimes we talk about business of plastic surgery, and he would problem solve things with me. But the reason I say that is because one day I called him. I was so excited because it was day. I'd probably been in practice about 8 months, and I called him. I was like, Dr. Klatsky, you can't believe how successful I am. I have 4 employees. And he was like, Avron, um, that is not And so, and then he gave me this anecdote. And he was like, when I was an intern, um, one intern would run the entire ward of surgery patients. There were 50 patients, and we'd round, and it was very hard work. And then people would complain, the interns would complain. And so they hired another resident. And then there were 2 residents. But then that meant that the 2 residents had to check out to each other, and then clinical things would get dropped. And then they had to take time off. And by a month or two into that, they had to hire 3 residents. And as they hired more and more people, the quality of care went down. The residents were more and more unhappy, and the whole system started failing. So they went back to 1 resident. But the point is that it doesn't necessarily. You have to. I'm not saying don't hire people. It's just you need to hire people at the right time. And hiring people is not the sign of success. Hiring people needs to be done for the right reasons. And then you have to have a very strong plan of why you're hiring those people, and they have to be managed very carefully. So just having 4 staff is not the answer. It's why you're doing it, and so on. But Dr. Klatsky was an amazing human being, and I'm very grateful for his mentorship over those years.
You've got to get it from somewhere, from your friends, anybody who's been there before you. You're absolutely right, though. Get it from somebody you respect and you appreciate where they are, and that's where you want to go. Don't take advice from people who haven't been there already or know what the heck they're talking about. And the thing about staff, I will just guarantee after doing this for so long, staff always says they're overworked, always. They always. So just know that and just get very strategic about it. I'm real big on And I don't like to talk about personality staffs. I like to talk about this position. This is what this position does. This is what they're held accountable for. And if you can't do all of these things, let us know. And then we will either rearrange things or maybe we'll bring on somebody else. But I get real tactical about that because you can't just anecdotally say, oh, well, the staff's overworked. Let's add some more. You're just adding more complexity.
I can't agree more, Catherine. You're 100% right. It's a position, and sometimes people fit into it, and sometimes they don't. But it's you have to create that position, and it's got to be very. Each position has to be very carefully managed.
Right. So if I'm not mistaken, you're up to like a 7,000 square foot facility. Is that correct?
In the one place. So again, that's another thing, it's square feet does not equal dollars, but sometimes it's important, when you need to, when you're ready to grow. And okay, let me just say this. I started out subletting an office, subletting in somebody else's space. And then most of the practice was actually run out of my house. So we would do the practice management and the whatever marketing we did and the billing and everything actually was run out of my house. And then I would sublet. And then we grew incrementally, um, you know, to having our own small office. And then we bought the building with a partner, and eventually I bought the partner out, and it's just okay to me, growth, not just in terms of staff and revenue and so on, should be done organically. At least that's what I feel comfortable doing. And so yeah, it is 7,000 square feet, but we really work hard to make sure that every square foot is productive. So on I have like a side that where I'm working, and sometimes another doctor comes and rents space from me these days. Then I have another, and that's about 2,500 square feet. I have a mid-level providers working in a separate area, another 2,500 square feet, and then we have a med spa where estheticians in general are working. And we kind of, again, we want to keep it as busy and productive as possible. And then there's the satellite office down in West Palm.
How many square feet is that?
That's actually about 1,500, and it is a salon, a hair salon.
Oh,
My wife manages, and we, combine services. We cross-refer, and the salon feeds the med spa feeds the surgeries, and it goes around, and sometimes the other way around as well. So it's been an interesting, within the last 1 year, addition to the practice.
so the satellite, it's a hair salon, not a med spa.
It started out as only a hair salon and a spa, just as an esthetician doing spa work, facials and lymphatic massage and that kind of thing. And then we added 2 rooms, and now we injecting there. We see consults there. So there is a medical grade kind of area where we can take care of patients.
And has it been a good surgical feeder for you?
Actually, I think it has been. Well, you got to have the right salon, because not all salons are going to be able to feed your facelifts, but this one is able to. It's a very high-end salon. It's got the best hair. I mean, plastic. I should have been a hairdresser, honestly. Those I didn't know how much hair color, how much money people are willing to spend on hair.
Crazy, yeah.
Unbelievable how much money they spend on color and extensions, and just maintaining hair and nails, and doing good quality makeup. There's a big market for obviously hair, but it's very competitive. Of course, in plastic surgery, we all complain about competition and this, that, but that's nothing compared to those guys. There's no barrier to entry. Anybody can basically do it. And the quality of the work is actually what stands out. So you really have to have amazing providers, and have a very strong strategy, marketing and sales strategy in the salon. So it's been a learning experience, but we have had referrals. We've had significant referrals from there.
How far away is it from your practice?
It's 35-minute drive.
Okay. And do you have traffic issues like we do in California?
At times, yeah, and I can't. It really, obviously, to clone me is difficult, but uh, I'd love to cover that place more. But so my mid levels will go there a day or two a week, and I'm there a day or two a week.
Oh, okay.
But Saturday, so it's like it's adding. It's more work. It's not less work.
Do you find it difficult to manage two locations?
I wouldn't do it without Joanne, my wife's. I wouldn't do it. I think that I suppose what you would have to do is got to when you're in that position, um, or starting to get into those kind of positions, you have to figure out what are you trying to achieve.
Right.
What is the goal? Am I trying to get more surgeries, or am I trying to grow an extension of the business just in terms of revenue and profitability, or is it some kind of scaling that you're trying to do? Like, there's different goals, right?
Right.
Or you're trying to get less busy, that you're trying to offload some of your work and kind of develop other people. And everybody's goal is going to be different. Yeah. So first set the goal. So my first goal is, and you hit the nail on the head. I guess maybe because I'm not, maybe I look like I want to get more surgeries, but I do. That was that's probably one of the main goals, is to find, for at least for my practice. So it was to have an extension of the practice and have a new referral source that was very committed to referring to me. And it worked. So far it's worked. It's been about a year, and but it's not less work. It's more work. And then you have to manage all those people um, that also have their goals and what's the strategy over there to grow. And then there's obviously going to be tensions between surgery, salon, and spa, and we have to manage that. But I honestly, I wouldn't do it if I didn't have very strong management. That's not me over there.
Right? Because the goal is to get some of the pressure off of you, and especially being the only revenue generator. So I like to look at it and say, okay, what are you getting out of this? If frankly, if there's money coming in that wasn't due to your hands, I think that's an absolute win. But not if you're up at night worrying about all this staff, because that brings on drama. You've got a lot of people to manage, and the money, you're always trying to figure out, is this a good place for me to spend my time on a Saturday or not? And there's nothing easy about that, but you're really young, and if you're ever going to do it, now's the time.
All these lights make me look very young, Catherine. I don't think I'm that young. But the truth is that the busier you get, the busier you get. And at least from where I stand right now, it's hard to kind of delegate away and still stays profitable. And that's something that I've learned as well, that when you start delegating away, the profitability starts decreasing, and you have to be ready for that in terms of growth. So bringing more people in is good, but you got to know that your revenue will go up, but your profitability will generally, at least from where I stand, and has not when I've done that. And I've tried everything, by the way.
Have you brought on other surgeons?
Well, actually, that's not entirely true. I've brought on mid-levels, lots of mid-levels. I've brought on
When you say mid-levels, do you mean
PAs, nurse practitioners, injectors, people that can do certain kinds of, but I've never brought in a surgeon, a partner, or an associate. I just don't think my practice at this point is ready for that. But we're getting closer. We're getting very close now.
Well, your surgery center, how many ORs do you have?
1 OR.
Okay.
It's 1 OR, and there are a couple of surgeons that are credentialed. But really, I carry the work. I'm the workhorse.
Okay. And then you have an aftercare facility as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Nice.
Yeah. So we it is an advantage of where we are, because in Stuart we can have, as you said, a significant amount of space. the rent is relatively, well, the buildings, the mortgage is relatively low, so we can spread out, and then we can keep people here overnight. And it's really great to be able to do that, because when they go home, especially these facelifts, they can really do poorly if they don't have the right care.
Right. What would you say would be the biggest challenge of what you've grown? Because you have a nice system here, but there are a lot of moving parts. What would be the biggest challenge?
Of course, the people, it's always the same answer, I'm sure. I mean, it's managing the people, and
Hmm.
managing the financial cash flow.
Yep.
Cash flow and people
Yeah.
have been you got to make sure that, and they of course go hand in hand, and you have to be malleable. You have to adjust. You can't. Okay, so you can't set a plan, and then so as surgeons, we tend to we're taught to make a plan and then see the plan through to the end of the surgery, almost no matter what, right? In business, that's the you should do the opposite. It's not that you mustn't make a plan. You must make a plan.
Hmm.
You must really work hard to like see the plan through. But if the plan's not working, you have got to let it go. That is a big thing I've had to learn. Or you have to move on and make or change the plan or adjust the plan, make changes. You can't be rigid about your decision making in business, and especially when you're being advised like to make certain decisions. So you think like a guru would know, or maybe somebody who's been there before, who has knows. Um, Especially consultants. No offense, but I've had consultants, and they can set the ball in motion and then they walk away. They don't have to see that the fallout at the end. So I've had to learn that in the last several years.
In my defense, I can't stand when consultants show up and say this is what you should do, and then they leave. I'm all about execution, because no good idea matters unless we execute the darn thing, and then we have to test it and hold everybody accountable.
Yeah.
I have put together so many plans that are so perfect, and they were great while I was there. The minute I was off the clock, everyone went back to the way they were doing it. They went back to not answering the phones correctly, not knowing how to convert consults, not running the processes like I told them to, not holding the staff accountable. And I thought, what the heck, I mean, you had all the answers and you had it working. The goal is to run this as smoothly as possible with the least amount of headaches. Then the way you do that, get somebody who knows what they're doing, set up the plan, and then hold everybody accountable to make sure they're doing it.
I 100% agree. Another thing is the system on how you set people up, how you hold people accountable, has to be like very well defined. So, I mean, right now we are implementing a system where we're able to listen to phone calls.
Right?
So, in corporate America, that's like given. Of course, you got to listen to the phone calls, and but in at the moment, we're just kind of taking people's word for it. Oh yeah, I answered the call in the right way, or I made that phone call. But there's no, like, how the only real way to hold somebody accountable from that point of view is to listen to the phone call.
Yeah.
So that's one, and each feedback mechanism has to be um, monitored and accounted for. The phones are one part, the marketing is another part, the medical procedure and outcome is another.
Right. I don't know. The phones, I think, most of you, if you would just fix your phones, you'd be in good shape. I wouldn't do anything fancier than until you first fix your phones. I just did a call today and we did some cross-checking, my staff, and sure enough, I literally give them word for word what to say. That works for 80% of all the calls. And if you would just do it, I guarantee, brilliant. You'll get a lot more callers booking a consultation instead of saying, thanks so much, I'll call you back. And sure enough, the girls, I called her on it and I said, now what's going on with the script? You don't like it? And she said, well, I don't really like those 3 areas that you're asking about. And I thought, did you think this was optional? She didn't want to ask where, how they heard about the practice. When were you thinking about having this done? And I have a credentialing for this surgeon. I want to brag about him before I give anybody any starting fees. She thought that was a little too much, a little too salesy. And I thought, oh dear God.
You're 100% right. I agree. Or how about this? Hi, this is Avron Lipschitz from Athena Plastic Surgery. Can I get your name and number in case we get disconnected? Like that first line.
I love that.
How often do you think that they actually use that first line? What percent of the time?
80% of the time. Yeah.
It should be. It should be.
They should.
But I assure you, in most practices, it's not. And so then it becomes, how strong are you as a leader, and are you able to kind of make the changes that need to be made? And sometimes making the changes it's hard to make the changes because it becomes a human resource problem, and that's like we surgeons are not trained to do that, and then we try and avoid it, and then you don't do the right thing for your practice, which is sometimes people just aren't the right person for the practice.
Well, they always say the arrows all point to the top, and I have found that the staff will act according to the surgeon's standards of excellence and their expectations. If you're being a leader and a visionary and you're telling this team, we're not playing around here, team. It is competitive out there. We're the best, or that's what we strive to be. And this isn't an exercise. This isn't optional. This is how we're going to run this show, and we're going to watch. But we're also going to incentivize them as well. We have to treat staff well, but not at the detriment of making staff happy and the patients are miserable. So
I'll add something else onto that. Be careful about people who you perceive as being like, world famous or the best at this or that, or like having like this enormous Instagram following. A couple of like a year ago, I did this experiment where we called some extremely well-known plastic surgeons, like world famous plastic surgeons, at their office. We just picked up a phone and called them. What do you think? How do you think that the patients? How do you think the front desk was answering that phone in these offices?
I've done it myself. I've
Exactly
always been
the kind of
shocked.
problems that you and I are talking about.
Mhm.
In fact, many of them just didn't answer at all. It was just a deadline. And can you imagine spending all that time and effort, creating content so that people call and you don't answer the phone? Don't even answer the phone, not answer badly, just like a deadline.
Right.
That is basically malpractice. That's
Right.
business malpractice. Got to have an ROI on your marketing. You're spending all this time creating content and Instagramming and so on, but you're unable to convert the lead, then you're gonna have a problem.
Well, it's such a disconnect because the surgeon oftentimes is the best content creator and he's got this down. He's got the best brand. He's got a killer website. And then they pick up the phone and the caller says, are you kidding me? Is this the same practice? I thought, because their expectations are like way up there when you've done all this really good branding and online presence. And then you have this young person at the desk that you haven't trained and she brings it all down. It all comes tumbling down.
It's true. It's difficult. And that is, like, as you said, the front end, that process is one of the most difficult things to get right, which is why I think some of the very big brands, like, think about how what is your experience like communicating with really some of the biggest companies in the world? Try and communicate with Apple or Google or Facebook. It's impossible, right? They are awful.
Mm-hmm.
And is it just that's just being carried on in like society at large? But we don't have the luxury of, we're not an Apple, we're not Google, we're not Facebook. We don't have the luxury of abusing our clients and customers. We are mostly boutique practices. We have to take care of them like, like a maitre d' does at a 5-star restaurant. And so I believe, at least that's how I would run. That's how I want my practice run. But I think there is this general attitude out there that it doesn't have to be, but it's not. One has to be, on it when it comes to patient care.
Well, if you haven't trained your staff, they're literally the patient deterrent department. Half of the consulting I do is just, let me just tell you where you're losing the money, and we can fix this pretty darn quickly when we get the right people on board, train them, and then hold them accountable. That's my thing. So let's talk about one big mistake you made that others could learn from.
I made a lot of mistakes.
I know, give me just one.
Um, okay, so I think again, I'll come back to it again. I was so we want to bring on a mid-level provider, and I listened to a webinar, and I asked a consultant, and we kind of ran the numbers, and we took the advice of what was out there, in like, this is the, because we were growing, and we really we took all their advice. The practice did grow, but we lost a lot of money. And so, we doubled the size of the practice, but we lost money. And so it turned out, so after a year, we went, of trying to figure out what is going on. Well, it turned out that, in our situation, we were overpaying the mid-level because we took the advice of somebody in a different environment. So I think the point is that if you are in whatever environment you're in, whatever, like, I mean, from city to city, from town to town, things are going to be different. But you always have to examine your personal, experience, and make sure that you are achieving the goals that you're trying to achieve. And be careful again about listening to other people who are not you. They don't have to. They have their own situation that needs to they're trying to problem solve, and it doesn't always apply to you.
And you don't want to you don't want to pay somebody to learn your industry. There's plenty of people in our industry that know what's going on. I would never go out of our industry and have to train somebody who knows a lot about orthopedics. Now they have to learn plastic surgery. We have a different world where we live in a different world. The patients are different, very emotional. It's all different. So I would just say, give your money to somebody who knows what they're talking about, for sure.
Yeah.
So any plans to grow any more, or?
Yeah, it's funny you're talking about that. And I don't know about other practices out there. We get people coming to us every day from venture capital and from, other practices. And I'm talking to a guy right now. So I think that's something important. I think it's important to know what's out there in terms of strategic partnerships, potentially, financial leverage partnerships, potentially medical partnerships, or other ways to grow and so-called scale the practice. Not a big fan of that word, by the way, scale. It's like, it makes it. I don't think that we're in an industry that in general lends itself to scale, unless you as the medical provider you need to have, that's a business, that's a financial kind of gearing like model. And what I believe we need to do is build and grow sustainably. And it's not just, if you're just managing some kind of scaling business that's like doubling or tripling every year, that's I can't do that, right? Because we don't have I don't have the bandwidth to do it. I'm not saying don't grow. I think growth is critical. It's important. If you're not growing, you're kind of dying. But be very careful about just scaling for scaling's sake. But I do every day look at growth opportunities. I have somebody who we're reaching out to right now, in between West Palm Beach and Stuart. There's like a town called Jupiter. We're looking at that area right now. There's a very fast growing area in Florida that's literally just north of us called Port St. Lucie. We're looking at that area. We're also looking at mobile. So there's a lot of, and we actually have a mobile medical, practice. And what we do is look at the most profitable and important parts of our practice, and try and grow those out as sustainably as possible.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that makes sense. So let's talk about the marketing, because when you have 7,000 square feet, you have to keep a lot of patients moving through there. Any marketing that's working better than any other marketing? Any tips there?
Internal marketing is like the most important thing to
Thank you for saying that. Do you know how many surgeons don't understand that?
no, that's yeah, no, I'm very that's the most important part of marketing, and we spend the most amount of time reaching out to our no. I think obviously there's a time in your practice where when you're starting out that you can't be doing that. But I that's the most efficient how do I say this? Like most profitable, most kind of effective way of marketing. You have a database of usually at this stage in your career, you've got thousands of patients that trust you. You've been taking care of them for sometimes many years, and those patients, you don't have to spend more money to reach out to those very patients, and those patients have friends and family. And anyway, that's I believe the most important part of marketing is internal marketing.
The best part of our industry is it's a hungry, insatiable market. The aging process will keep them coming back forever. I promise I am that person. I can't imagine why you wouldn't cater and nurture that person who gave you money. They'll come back and give you a lot more and bring their friends with them if you just focused on them more than jumping over them to get to that new internet stranger patient who doesn't know you from Joe Schmo. It's impossible to convert them because they're going to come in with 3 different quotes. I just think, I don't know why everyone's making this so difficult. I think it should be, I call it smarketing. I didn't make that up, by the way. I heard that on the internet. Smart marketing is go after people who already know, like, and trust you and would totally return and refer their friends. Just makes more sense.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons we went for the salon. I guess buying the salon was a marketing strategy, really.
Okay.
It's a salon that's been there for 20 years. The stylists there are very well known. The stylists' clients trust the stylist. So if they say go see Dr. Lipschitz for your Botox or for your breast augmentation or for your facelift, that is and so it's a kind of a pseudo internal marketing, and it was also a way for us to grow the practice. And so I give a lot of credit to actually my wife, who kind of pushed that, because that's what's helped the practice in the last year. It's been very important, actually.
I actually wrote a book called Your Aesthetic Practice, What Your Patients Are Saying. And one of the stories in there is a hairstylist in San Francisco. And he was very flamboyant and fun. And the patients, women, just love him. And he would refer 250 referrals a year between the plastic surgeon and the dermatologist, cosmetic dermatologist. And he was a killer referral source. I mean, they lived off of him, and I thought, we talk to our hairstylist like we talk to a therapist. It's a very tight relationship. We women don't just flip hairstylists.
Oh, they're very important, and I agree. Some of their clients would fly across the country to get their hair done in West Palm Beach. It was an eye opening for me. Of course, as a man, I'm not really as familiar.
I saw your hair. I saw your Instagram video with the hair. You're quite into it too. That was a great hair.
This is my pompadour hairdo, but that's only because I go now to this guy. He's amazing. Erbah Hussein in West Palm Beach. Please come and see him. He's amazing. And also Dino Lodati. He's phenomenal. And my last guy is Joe. Joe is also phenomenal. They all do great work. It's an art. And I think that's another thing about plastic surgery that I've also learned. 5 or 10 years ago, as we were like growing, I was like, okay, process is everything. Process for the marketing, and it's not that it's not. Process is very important. But as we got busier and busier, I realized that there's actually, you got to slow down sometimes as the provider. You actually got to like forcibly slow down the practice if you feel like the patients aren't getting not only the care, but the art of plastic surgery. Because, if you want to stamp a bunch of like things out, you can do it quickly and get kind of like an okay result. But if you want really amazing results, it takes time. And unfortunately, that's our business. There's, you can do a lot of commoditized things for cheap, but if you really want a great facelift or a good, outcome in whatever, it's an art, and it takes time, and it can't be just processed and stamped out like a printing press. It has to be, it's time. So there's a balance in plastic surgery. There's a balance between getting the the volume, getting taking care of volume, and versus getting great results. And artistically, again, the longer I do this for, the more art I see in the industry.
Yes, and you'll see that you gravitate towards certain procedures that you really love, and then that's how you scale. You stop doing those procedures that you don't love, too much hand holding, they're not your preferred patients, and you start charging more because you're an artist now, not just the surgeon.
Yeah, I feel like that's where our practice is going actually now. So it's like we've really developing the more complex like facelift type of practice, which is very gratifying for me. So I think that's something to learn as well, is to do things that you really love and enjoy. Um, work hard to make more of that.
And you get so good at it that you can, but the secret is you can explain why your facelift is different than someone else's. If you can get good at that, people will pay a lot more for it. If you're able to illustrate it or visualize it or articulate it, why your facelift over someone else's. And by the way, on your Instagram, you have a lot of facelift patients who are totally willing to do full-on videos and testimonials. And how are you getting them to do that? Everybody says, "Oh, my patients are very private." They're just not asking enough patients.
Are you telling me that on my Instagram there's a lot of them? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, several. Yes.
I'm like shocked because I feel like there's not enough.
Well, there's not enough, but there's plenty for someone looking for a facelift. Like, there's more social proof there than I've seen in a lot of different places.
Well, I mean, the truth is that that's just a tiny fraction. That's the so I'm kind of like, oh my gosh, because that is a small fraction of the number of people that I've operated on.
Correct. So it's a numbers game, right? You have to keep asking until
So there's
they'll.
always going to be, yeah, you got to ask. So there's all, it's very private, and I'm very sensitive to patients' kind of like their wishes, and then I also listen very carefully to how they are, articulate themselves, and how, outgoing they are, and how open they are to not everybody, especially with facelifts. Maybe not in like New York or LA or something, because I think everybody's like, oh, everything is on display.
On Park Avenue, you can walk down the street and see everyone bandaged. It's a riot.
But over here in this part of Florida, and Miami is probably similar, but in this part of Florida, you're right, it's hard. So probably 1 in 10 patients is
Right.
willing to do it, but I'm always thinking about it.
But ask all 10 to get the one.
We ask, and it's like dating. It's like you got turned down a lot. But and then I think you gotta pick obviously the right person. And when I interview them, when I'm doing that little like thing with them, which I find very good. Like, I think that's a very good way of kind of communicating it, like sit with the patient. But I'm learning now. I actually this is my criticism of myself. I actually want the patient to talk more than me. But you can probably hear I'm a yapper, as my 16-year-old says. I'm a yapper, so I kind of tend to talk over them a little bit.
I would let the patient tell their story.
Let the patients do the talking, right? So I'm learning that, and that's what. But I've seen it. I think patients. There's almost no patient. It would be very hard to imagine a patient, even and especially a facelift, not going on Instagram or not going on social media to kind of find out more about the doctor. I find that hard to believe. But believe it or not, in this area, there are a lot of people that are just actually the best form of quote unquote advertising for facial rejuvenation is word of mouth. Of course, it's word of mouth, right? I had a facelift by Dr. This, and I'm sitting in, Mar-a-Lago, literally, or, a country club in, Hobe Sound or West Palm Beach or Stuart, and they look in each other's ears, and I had a lot of pain, and I've got this lump, and I didn't like this, and then they show up. But that's really your best marketing. The patients are the market themselves.
Are you trying to infiltrate that group? Like, did you join the country club or you?
I'm not a country club guy. I'm like very not like that. But we do talks. Like right now, my practice manager is setting up talks at various country clubs and events, the Melanoma Society, the various kind of and then I love to meet people on a direct, like, one-to-one um basis. And you know um I'm not a golfer. I'm not a country club person. I just prefer to, I'd rather just give a little talk, answer some questions. We have events here, like this on Wednesday, we had a facelift event or facial rejuvenation event where we spoke about, not just um, surgery, but like all of facial aesthetics, from just health, how to take care of yourself, staying out of the sun, all the way through to weight management, wellness, and then med spa, and then surgery. So, in this area, we can be everything under what, like the full complement under one umbrella, full complement of facial aesthetics under one umbrella. I think potentially in other areas you need to be more kind of focused. But this seems to work for us, where we are able to provide a lot of different services. Maybe too many services. It's always that criticism. But I kind of like to have the variety. Personally, I like to have the variety of multiple services, because it stimulates me. I like to hear about wellness. I love to hear about hormones. I had to relearn all about hormone replacement therapy. I went back to like medical school to learn about, what the latest is, and now we're able to offer it here. And I think plastic surgeons are at a very we're in a good position to provide those kinds of services. So we brought that in. I mean, I don't do it myself a lot, but my mid-levels are doing it.
Right. Aren't you offering Ozempic or weight management solutions as well?
Yeah, I mean, you know, for body, it's turned the body contouring. I'm sure you know this, Catherine. It's turned the body contouring industry upside down.
Yes, it has.
My colleagues that do a lot of liposuction are telling me their numbers are like way off, and unless they it's kind of what Botox and fillers did to facial rejuvenation at one point. I'm sure it was before my time, but I remember some of my the older colleagues telling me they would never inject Botox. That's like appalling.
Right.
They would only operate, and the whole world changed on them.
But it's also been a beautiful new profit center for surgeons with sagging skin, because now we have tummy tucks and butt lifts and facelifts, and one door closes and another one opens. You just have to decide, do you want to play that game or not?
You have to embrace the change. When the change comes, I mean, the science is there, the patients are there. The first time I opened my eyes to it was patients were starting to come in with like a lot of hanging skin, and it used to be that it was like bariatric surgery that had like they lost 100 pounds after having a gastric sleeve or a band or a bypass or something, and patients started coming in just telling me they just lost the weight by themselves, and I was like, how is that? That's interesting. And this was like 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, even before, it was barely FDA approved, but the patients were coming. They hadn't put it together. They were diabetics, and they were like getting Ozempic, and they didn't know why they lost all this weight. They just assumed that it was like whatever, and there was very little information on it. But I saw these like massive weight loss patients, and it was like there's something very different. And so we were the first people in the area, at least, to bring on semaglutide into the practice. And I'm a big believer in it. I think it's very important, actually, for a lot. It's changed the health of a lot of people.
Well, especially when you say to a patient, I'm sorry, you've got to lose 30 pounds before I can do surgery on you. That's like the worst thing you can say to a patient.
As we'll say, I'm not gonna ever operate on you, right?
I,
But Ozempic, now you can offer them something, and it's effective and powerful, and it works. And I think it, like I said, I think yeah, I know there's some surgeons that are like, we don't do that. I'd refer it away. I don't believe in it. It has all the side effects, and it's like, oh, okay, well, okay, I'll do it. I'll do it instead of you. I have no like, ego on that. It's
yeah,
fine.
yeah. So we're going to be wrapping it up. Give me a crazy patient or staff story that you would care to share.
Oh, crazy story. All right. Let me think. Well, I had a patient that was preparing for a facelift. She's 68 years old, and she was, typically going through the process of looking at her schedule, looking at the surgery, looking at the downtime, and trying to figure out, how it was going to fit into her life. And we, obviously explained to her it's about 6 weeks before you can do vigorous activity, and 2 weeks before you look kind of presentable and so on. So she's like looking through her diary furiously, and then her friend comes in, and we were trying to kind of figure out what was going on. Anyway, turns out that she was a January 6th rioter, and she
Oh, no.
had climbed through a window at the Capitol with a bandana around it. This is a 68-year-old grandma, was otherwise a lovely woman. And there were pictures of her on the internet, basically climbing through a window at the Capitol, and she basically then did some time, and in between had a facelift.
She went to jail?
She did,
Oh, my
with a
God.
facelift. And she came back. I saw her quite recently, and she's lovely as well. And she still sees me. We do injectables, and she's fine.
Oh,
That was pretty strange.
my God. Oh,
That
crazy.
that was pretty strange.
All right. Well, I'm afraid to ask this. The last question. Tell us something that we don't know about you.
Oh, about me. Um,
We know you don't golf. We got that.
I have bonsai trees.
Oh, yeah.
I have little trees that I
I
love to.
hear they're very difficult to grow. Yeah.
Yeah, they can be very fragile. But in Florida, we have great weather, and it's actually easier to keep some of them alive than it is in other parts of the world. So as long as you keep watering them, uh, they do great.
If I'm not mistaken, though, there's something about bonsai trees. Isn't it something like they're really little and then all of a sudden they become massive? Is that what it is?
Well, or it can be the other way around. They can start out as massive trees. Like you'll, there's a very interesting kind of bonsai called a yamadori, which is a tree that's been growing in the wild for, it could be centuries. It's like a fully grown tree, but you can repot. Basically, you take it down off the mountainside, let's say, you repot it, and it takes time because it has to learn its new uh, environment, and then you have to transfer it a couple of times before you can really shape it. And the process can take years before you actually shape it and then put it in. But a lot of those trees that you'll see in like Japanese gardens that are like magnificent are Yamadori. They're actually wild grown. They're not just grown out of like a nursery. And that's what gives them that kind of dramatic, very windswept or ancient look. And that's really exciting to me, actually.
That sounds painful. I just want a fern that grows and is hardy, and if I forget to water it, it's still okay. Yeah, I need something easier. So, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you just to ask you some more questions, I know your website is athenaplasticsurgery.com.
Yep.
What's your Instagram handle? Do you know?
It's at Athena Plastic Surgery. That's us.
Oh, that makes sense.
And then I have another personal one called Dr. Abby.
Oh,
DRAVY TV, Dr. Abby TV. So that's
Abby,
my
AVY.
Dr. Abby, DRAVY TV. That's my personal Instagram, and then Athena Plastic Surgery is our main Believe it or not, no one's kind of taken that handle except us. Lucky.
I am surprised about that. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much. It has been a pleasure getting to know you, and I hope to see you at one of the meetings coming up soon. All right.
Thank you, Catherine.
Absolutely. So thanks, everybody. That'll wrap it up for us today. If you would be so kind as to subscribe to Beauty in the Biz so I can grow the audience, that would be greatly appreciated. And then if you've got any feedback or questions for me, please leave them on my website at catherinemaley.com, where I also offer a 30-minute complimentary consultation from a true consultant who knows what's going on in the industry. And then if you want to DM me on Instagram, it's Catherine Maley, MBA. Thanks so much. We'll talk again soon.
The fastest way to success is to model other successful surgeons who have what you want, but you can only see their results, not the path they took to get there. So you continue to jump from one thing to another, hoping to find something that will work for you too. But it rarely does. So try this shortcut instead. It's guaranteed to move you forward. I compiled my intellectual property to grow cosmetic revenues, everything I've gleaned over the years, into one playbook of the most successful practices and what they do to win. Go to cosmeticpracticevault.com and let's grow your cosmetic revenues.